Hi Crew, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be talking about some of the most useful non-EX cards in the Spacetime Smackdown expansion on Pokemon Pocket. Now of course in this expansion we have been introduced some extremely powerful new EX cards, particularly the Darkrai EX, which has been hitting very hard on the Mewtwo deck recently. But today I'm going to look at some non-EX cards that may be overlooked and are quite useful to add to your deck. These will include some supporter cards and the tool cards that have recently been introduced into this expansion. So first up we have Giratina, which has a very useful ability called Levitate. This ability means that if it has any energy attached to it, it can retreat with no cost. This can be extremely useful as it can be a staller card, it can take a few hits, you can build up your deck and then retreat it with no cost and bring in the Pokemon that you've built up during those turns. Because it has 120 HP as well, it's not exactly light on the HP. You can add Giant Cape to it to add some more HP, or you can add the Rocky Helmet to add some passive damage to it. So an incredibly useful card, particularly to the Mewtwo deck, where you can set up the Mewtwo whilst you're waiting to get that Gardevoir, and it can take some damage as it goes. It feels like the Psychic deck has been getting a lot of useful cards, even though it's incredibly powerful with the Mewtwo deck, because we now have the Dust Noir as well that can also do a similar role to the Giratina. It has the ability Shadow Void, which as often as you like during your turn, you may choose one of your Pokemon that has damage on it and move all that damage to that Pokemon. This is insanely useful because you can bring it in and out whenever you want and move all that damage to that Pokemon. So if your Mewtwo's out, you can take some damage on the Mewtwo, but then immediately move it over to Dust Noir so that you have full HP on your Mewtwo as long as possible. The good thing as well is if this Dust Noir does get taken out, it will only count as 1 point. It won't be like an EX card where they gain 2 points, so it can be quite useful in that sense. It also has 130 HP, so 10 HP more than the Giratina, so it can also be used as a great staller card, and again you can add the Giant Cape tool onto this card to buff it out a bit for 150 HP, or you can use the Rocky Helmet to add some passive damage. So next we have the Rampardos. I feel like this one's extremely underrated. I haven't seen it much in play, but when I have come across it, it's been incredibly hard to maneuver against. It is a stage 2 Pokemon, so it takes a little bit to set up, but once you've got it set up, it's really good for the end game. You can use it as a finisher, or you can even use it to take down some immediate damage. The attack it uses, Head Smash, only requires 1 fighting energy and does 130 damage. If you pair this up with Lucario, this does an immediate 150 damage on just 1 energy. This is incredibly powerful, along with the fact that it's got 150 HP. Now the one downside that is if you do manage to knock the opponent's Pokemon out, then it does do 50 damage to itself. But this is nothing in comparison to how much energy it needs and the amount of damage that it does. This means you can immediately take out the Mewtwo card or some of the bigger HP Pokemon. It can't take out some of the bigger HP ones such as Executor or the Gyarados, but since you won't be knocking it out straight away, this can be an incredibly powerful Pokemon. Take out most of the damage in 1 hit and then finish it off with another Pokemon. Next up we have the Manaphy card in the Water deck. This one fits in with the Water deck really well in boosting some energy. And of course we've got the Palkia EX card now, which requires 4 energy cards to be able to do the massive 150 damage. So on 1 energy you have Oceanic Gift. Choose 2 of your bench Pokemon. For each of those Pokemon, take a water energy from your energy zone and attach it to those Pokemon. So you can build up energy on the bench to 2 of your Pokemon. It does only have 50 HP, so it can be hit quite easily, but if the opponent's deck is still being set up, you can quickly add some energy on without worrying about getting one shot. So the next card I want to talk about is the Togekiss card. I know, another Psychic type card, but these ones have been getting major upgrades lately. So the Togekiss is a 2-stage Pokemon, so it's not easy to set up. But once it has been set up, oh my god, the damage on this one is insane. So first of all, it only does 60 damage on its first turn, but once it takes its second turn, it does an extra 60 damage, so we're talking 120 damage. Bear in mind the Cynthia card does plus 50 damage on the Togekiss card as well. You're bumping that up to 170 damage, which is insane. That can take out most Pokemon already, and if that wasn't good enough already, you can also bump it up to 190 damage to anything that was weak to a Psychic type. On top of that, you can add the Giovanni card, which adds another 10 HP damage onto it, or you can add the Rocky Helmet, which does 20 HP damage beforehand or after. So we're doing a lot of damage here on just one Togekiss. It has got 140 HP, so you might want to add the Giant Cape on just to give it a bit of a buff so that nothing can one-shot it very easily, especially since it does take 2 turns to do that massive damage on the second turn. The good thing as well is it's only weak to Steel type, which, alright, we do have the Dialga EX that's recently been introduced, but I feel like these decks aren't massive at the moment, so again, we're not talking massively strong decks, and therefore it won't be taken out quite as easily as, say, a Dark deck where the Darkrai is swamping the meta at the moment. Okay, so I have been mentioning them a lot already, but I do want to talk about the tool cards that were recently introduced, particularly the Rocky Helmet. Now, the Rocky Helmet does passive damage, which I think is pretty decent. It does 20 HP to any Pokemon that is attacking your active Pokemon and has the Rocky Helmet tool attached to it. Now, where I find this can be incredibly useful is the Druddigon already has the Rough Skin ability, which does 20 HP damage to the opponent's Pokemon if it attacks. Now, if you add the Rocky Helmet on top of that, you're doing a passive 40 HP damage to those Pokemon. Now, where this is really useful is you can be setting up your team really nicely and then having the Druddigon as passive 40 HP damage. This could do a lot of damage while you're just setting up your deck and you're not even doing anything. Another really good one to use the Rocky Helmet in as well is the Darkrai deck. As you're adding energy to the Darkrai and doing 20 HP damage with the Darkrai, you can be doing double that with the Rocky Helmet on your active Pokemon, and then you're going to be doing 40 HP damage without even really doing anything. You're just setting up your deck and you're already doing 40 HP damage in the early game. Another one that I find incredibly useful as well, which I've also talked about, is the Giant Cape. This one is how it is. It adds 20 HP onto your Pokemon. This just buffs them out a bit, can give them an edge if they're slightly lower HP, or gives them that edge to not be knocked out in just one hit. Just another one to buff out your Pokemon, stall your opponent, and yeah, just an all-round a good tool card. For our supporter card, we have the Cyrus card. Now, this one is like Sabrina on steroids. You can switch in one of your opponent's bench Pokemon that already has damage on it. This is incredibly useful. If your opponent has switched out a Pokemon that you've already done damage to, you can then switch it back in and finish it off. This has stumped me so many times because you're just not expecting it, and even when you are, there's nothing you can do. I've used it a few times as well, and it's won me the game where maybe I could have been on the edge or I could have lost on the next turn. So yeah, this is an incredibly useful support card. The Sabrina card does have a bit more leeway. It does have a bit more versatility, but the Cyrus card can really pack in a punch. So finally, I want to talk about the Magnezone card. This one has been used very well with the Darkrai deck. It's kind of unexpected actually, Darkrai and Magnezone together. These are 2 different types. This works really well because you can evolve into your Magneton, use that Volt Charge to add the Lightning Energy to do 110 damage. This is an incredibly good card to use alongside the Darkrai. You then have double the typings as well, so you've got Dark types against the Psychic, and then you've got the Electric types to use against the Bird Pokemon, and the Water types as well. This Darkrai Magnezone deck has been absolutely dominating the tournaments at the moment. It's got a very high win success, and it's been currently the most played so far. So there you have it. Those are my underrated non-EX cards. They have become very useful in some of my decks, and I have been mix and matching with a lot of these cards. They have become staples in some of my decks now. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel for more Pokemon Pocket content. Until next time, see ya!